All right, today we're digging up a piece of history that's been, well, pretty much forgotten. We're talking about a city that could totally give Athens or Rome a run for their money in terms of importance, yet most of us have never heard of it. This is the story of ancient Vaishali, and trust me, it's going to change how you think about the origins of democracy. So let me ask you something right off the bat. When you think of the birthplace of democracy, the world's very first republic, what's the first place that pops into your head? Go on, take a second.
Okay, so if you said Athens or somewhere in ancient Greece, that's totally understandable. But you'd be wrong. The world's first republic wasn't in Europe. It was right here, in India, in a place called Vaishali. And that single fact is the key to its entire incredible story. So let's kick things off with Vaishali's biggest claim to fame, the political revolution that literally made it the first republic on Earth. Now, to get a sense of just how mind-blowing this was, you got to transport yourself back to the 6th century BC. At that time, the world was dominated by monarchies. Pretty much everywhere you looked, it was all about kings and dynasties. Power passed down from father to son. That was the default. But Vaishali? Nope. They were playing a completely different game. So, you're probably wondering, how on earth did this ancient democracy actually work? What was the secret sauce? Well, Vaishali wasn't just a city. It was the capital of this powerful alliance, a confederation called the Bhikkhuni Sangha. Think of it like a super team of 8 different clans all working together. And the all-stars of this team, the real heavy hitters, were the Lichchhavis. They were the ones driving this whole Republican experiment. And this slide right here lays it all out perfectly. On one hand, you've got monarchy. The king rules, his son takes over. Simple. But in Vaishali's system, their Ganarajya, or republic, whoa, totally different. Leadership wasn't something you were born into. People actually elected their representatives. And big decisions, they were made in an assembly by voting based on majority rule. I mean, come on, that is absolutely revolutionary for that period in history. But hold on, Vaishali's story isn't just about politics, not by a long shot. This place was also a massive spiritual hub, a sacred land for not one but 2 of the world's major religions. For anyone who follows Jainism, Vaishali is, well, it's a hugely important pilgrimage site. And the reason is simple. The 24th Tirthankara, Lord Mahavira, the great reformer of the Jain faith, was born in a place called Kundalpur, which was right next door to Vaishali. And we're not just talking about a fleeting connection here. Lord Mahavira spent the first 22 years of his life in and around this region. That's a huge chunk of time. Those formative years created this deep, unbreakable bond, which is why the very ground here is considered so sacred in the Jain tradition. Okay, so you've got this deep connection to Jainism, but at the exact same time, Vaishali is incredibly important for Buddhism too. It was what's called a karma bhumi, basically a land of action, for Lord Buddha. Some of the most critical events in his entire life happened right here. I mean, you really can't tell the story of Buddhism without talking about Vaishali. This is where he gave his very last sermon. It's where he did something pretty radical for the time and founded the first order of nuns, giving women a central role. It's where the famous courtesan Amrapali became one of his followers. And, if that wasn't enough, long after he passed, this was the spot chosen for the hugely important Second Buddhist Council. And, there's this really sweet story from Buddhist tradition. It tells of a time when a group of monkeys actually offered a bowl of honey to the Buddha here as a gift. It's just a small story, but it really shows you the kind of peaceful, special atmosphere this place had. Okay, so we've got this mind-blowing political history and this deep dual spiritual significance. So the big question is, can you still see any of this today? And the answer is a big yes. Vaishali has these living monuments that are like a direct line to the past. Seriously, if you go to Vaishali today, you can literally walk through history. You've got the incredible Ashoka pillar, a stupa that holds actual relics of the Buddha, the sacred coronation tank from the Republic days, and even a more modern world peace stupa. So let's zoom in on that Ashoka pillar for a second. This thing was put up by the legendary Emperor Ashoka way back in the 3rd century BC. It's this beautiful sandstone column, and right on top, there's a single, majestic lion symbolizing the Buddha's teachings. And get this, here's a really cool little detail. That lion isn't just facing any old way. It's pointing north. Why? Because that's the exact direction the Buddha traveled on his final journey from Vaishali. How amazing is that? The monument itself is telling you a story.
Next up, the Buddha relic stupa. And you guys, this is a really big deal. See, after the Buddha passed away, his ashes were divided up. The Lichchhavis of Vaishali got one share and they built this stupa to protect it. And during an excavation, they actually found a stone casket with those very ashes inside. It's just wow. And remember that republic we talked about? Well, this sacred pool, the Abhishek Pushkarani, takes us right back there. This was their coronation tank. Before the elected leaders could take office, they would come here to bathe in these holy waters. It was a key part of their democratic ritual. So let's just recap for a second. Why does Vaishali matter so much? One, it was the world's first republic, the cradle of democracy centuries before many others. Two, it's the sacred birthplace of Lord Mahavira, making it central to Jainism. And three, it was a major stage for the life of Lord Buddha. I mean, where else do you find that kind of incredible intersection of history? And all of this leaves us with one final big question to chew on. In our world today, where we're still grappling with the best ways to govern ourselves and make sure everyone has a voice, what lessons can we learn from a republic that was thriving more than 2,600 years ago? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this journey.